When a sudden, serious allegation is dropped into a floating online community, it spreads with the speed of a wildfire. These digital spaces operate in a vacuum. Unlike physical society, they lack investigative bodies or legal courts equipped to process complex accusations. Consequently, offenders with enough wealth or social capital can often ignore the noise entirely, as there are no real-world enforcements to hold them accountable. Lacking formal justice, the community is forced to rely on social justice to fill the gap. Without authority to verify facts, the volume of public outrage becomes the primary measure of guilt. While the crowd reacts, the friends of the accused face a different reality. Their silence or hesitation is often a struggle to reconcile the news with their personal history. If you have experienced someone's honesty and kindness for years, discarding that bond instantly is a psychological challenge. You naturally look for a reason to give them the benefit of the doubt. The internet, however, treats this hesitation as a crime. The mob demands immediate, public condemnation from everyone in the offender's orbit. This demand removes all nuance, forcing innocent bystanders into a false choice: join the outrage or be labeled as part of the problem. This is the mechanism of guilt by association. An individual is judged strictly by their proximity to the accused, rather than by their own actions. A personal connection is separate from the act itself, just as silence is separate from participation. This logic is frequently muddied when religious or cultural concepts, like the principle of loyalty and disavowal, are misapplied to justify these associative attacks. It leads to bystanders being publicly tagged, bullied, and pressured into boycotts, merely because they haven't publicly severed their friendships. Bypassing evidence to attack people based on their social circle turns a pursuit of justice into a campaign of harassment. In this environment, the community often calls for big brothers or influencers to step in and deliver a verdict. But in a decentralized space, these figures have no actual power. They can speak, but they cannot enforce a ruling. True offenders rarely respect these online judgments because they face no tangible consequences for ignoring them. Demanding that bystanders or influencers act as a surrogate legal system is a futile effort that ends up punishing the people who didn't actually commit the offense. This leads to the chain boycott. A community begins purging its own members to maintain a standard of perfect ideological purity. Harassing neutrals and potential supporters drives them away. They drift from the movement and form a defensive wall around the actual offender. By attacking anyone who doesn't react exactly like the crowd, the movement pushes potential allies into the camp of the accused. This creates a mathematical failure. The justice movement shrinks and weakens its own influence, while the offender gains a new layer of protection. Guilt by association is a strategy for self-destruction. For a community to maintain its integrity, social justice must rely on documented evidence and verifiable logic. Social and financial boycotts are powerful tools when directed at proven abusers. However, that pressure cannot extend to people whose only crime is a personal association. Long-term credibility is built on fairness. Targeted actions against real threats are more effective than broad purges. Addressing actual offenders requires targeted proof, not a reaction that turns allies into enemies and leaves the community fractured.